Hello and welcome everybody. Today's event is PM Lessons from Strategy Games with Daniel from the saas group. But before I hand over the stage to Daniel, I would like to quickly introduce myself as this morning's host. My name is Elizabeth. I'm an associate product manager at Product People. My background is in design. I started out as an industrial designer, then moved on to visual design, and finally transitioned into product management. Over the course of my career, I've partaken in the development of different products and currently working in the B2B space for a SaaS procurement company called saas.group. This was about me, but I would like to also briefly cover what we do at Product People. Our mission is to help companies discover and deliver great products faster. We have a growing product management community of over 13,000 members and manage PM work on an interim basis. We do so by onboarding fast, aligning teams, and delivering outcomes. And with that said, I'd love to hand over the presentation to Daniel, Head of Product Growth at saas Group. So Daniel, whenever you're ready, just feel free to share your slides.
Sure. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me. Glad to be part of this. So let me just quickly share my screen and my slides. So yeah, today is about gamify your product strategy. So probably you've read tons of articles on product strategy and frameworks and typical product related terminology. So I'd like to give this another twist and just bridge the topic into the gaming world. I'm not a huge gamer, to be honest, but I did my fair share of gaming when I was younger, and I think there are quite a few things and interesting concepts we can actually learn from gaming that are completely applicable to product management as well. So I'll just give you a short introduction who I am and why it's actually that I'm talking here. I explain a bit why we're talking about games and show you the game mechanics. I talk a bit about how to put this into actual product strategy, and then we'll finish off with an Ask Me Anything block. So who am I? Yeah, I'm working at saas Group. I just recently joined there. We are a company acquiring SaaS companies from all over the world. Now we do have a portfolio of 10 companies, but we don't try to sell them afterwards. We try to consistently grow them and make them more profitable. So right now I'm responsible for product management practices and product coaching for 10 SaaS companies. So over the last almost 20 years, I've worked in digital products. I've been a developer, I've been an Agile coach, a designer, a UX coach, and for the most part, I've worked as a product manager and coach. Quite a lot around product discovery and innovation projects, but also bridging this into the actual development teams and helping teams move beyond just Scrum when being Agile. That being said, last year I've written a book. So from vision to version, it's actually putting everything I've learned in the past 20 years into a coherent framework. You can just plug and play to go from vision to an actual outcome-focused roadmap. I just plug this shamelessly here because in the end of the webinar, I will give you a Product People voucher coupon code, so you can get this book for a discount. But that being said, let's head into the actual topic. So why we're talking about games, and I don't know how many of you are actually gamers or have been into gaming in the past or in your youth. But when I was younger, like in, I don't know, 6th grade, 7th grade, something like that, one game was very popular with us. It's called Lemmings. Perhaps you remember this one. So basically we got these hundreds of lemmings falling out of this door, and you need to manipulate this level to make them find the exit, or at least a percentage of those lemmings need to reach the exit. And these levels got harder and harder by every new level you reach. And what we did, we gathered together in school, and we draw this map with pen and paper, and strategized on how to beat this level. Then we went home, we tried this out, and it didn't work. We gathered again the next morning, and tried to come up with another strategy to do this. And we failed fast, we failed early, all these things you would expect from a startup and from a product company. We actually did while trying to solve these levels. And then we got stuck in the next level, and we need to come up with a completely new strategy because our environment has changed. So I got curious into why it came so natural to us as a kid to think in these strategic terms and to be very agile in our way of thinking about solving these puzzles. But once we grow older and we face the exact same problems in a business context, we most of the time fail to apply the same concepts, and we just lost our curiosity of finding out the right strategy to solve something. So that's basically the touch point for me into gaming, and why I think it's important to learn from it for product development. So very concise, let's just look and head into some of those game mechanics. I hope you're at least quite familiar with a few of those more popular games. So popular from my time, might not be relevant for the last 5 years. But I was showcasing a few screenshots from StarCraft and Warcraft, kind of those games that were probably the most popular in the past 20 years around strategy computer games. And I think they highlight quite nicely what I'm about to tell you. So there's this concept of fog of war, and this is very, very important in product development. So when we talk about fog of war in a game, it basically needs, and you can see this in the screenshot in the left corner on the bottom, that there's this mini map of the whole experience of the whole map. But you only see a very, very small part of this. Everything else is still black. You haven't discovered this yet. So you don't know where your competition, where your enemy is, how the landscape is laid out, where there are things you want to discover, where there are traps and anything. So you need to venture into this unknown to actually discover what is in there. And the other thing is, once you, for example, you discovered where your enemy is, and you can, if you got a unit, if you got some part of your army inside the competition's base, you can actually see what's happening. But once you leave there, it stays static. You know, you can see what you've discovered in the past, but you don't know if this has changed in the last half hour since you've been there. And that's exactly what's happening in product development. So you actually need to launch a product and move around the market to discover how it works, how the landscape is laid out, where the competitors are and what they're doing. And you can't do this once in the beginning and then just think you know the market. You need to constantly be in touch with this market and rediscover it to keep the fog of war away from your judgment. So know that your problem and your product is only a solution for a very, very small piece inside this larger customer job and customer journey. And you can choose to not only expand your view of the landscape and lift the fog of war, but actually you can discover new parts of the map that weren't there before, because you expand the problem your product is trying to solve and solve more of the customer journey with it. The next thing is very, very related to the fog of war is scouting. So scouting means you're sending like the very, very cheapest unit you can possibly buy in this game into the map early and often, exactly to discover this landscape and what the enemy is trying to do, what the opponent does, and you think of these units as completely dispensable. So you're not actually thinking of getting them back or bringing them back into your base. You know these costs are just sunk and it's fine for you. But it's the same in product development when you work with prototypes. So you want to keep discovering the fog of war, you want to keep discovering the market, and you do this by having low-cost prototypes. And you would never actually build a prototype that you expect to survive afterwards, that you want to build your long-term strategy on. It's just so low cost and so cheap that you just try to get your learning and then you throw it away. So this is actually the only way to learn about the market, is to build something and to show it to users, to build something to discover the market. And you do this by rapid prototyping. And I mean, a prototype, this is nothing that you build in 3-month time with developers. I would say I never used a prototype that took more than 2 days to get together, sometimes even just a few hours. So that's the kind of mindset you need for pushing cheap and dispensable prototypes into the market to lift the fog of war. It's called scouting. Then, once you discovered where the opponent is, you want to probably make a rush. What is a rush? So this one was especially important and very popular in the game StarCraft. So you optimize your complete strategy for an early attack with very low cost base units, and it works on very small maps where you don't travel that far, and you're trying to set the opponent under a lot of pressure and just keeping them from strategy. You're keeping them busy. They can't be thinking about their long-term goal. They can't be thinking strategically and do the right thing. They just react. So you want to be the one pushing and being active, so the competition is reactive. And this is something that is very important in highly competitive markets. So where you know an early market entry just secures your some part of this market share, and you can define how this market works for you. So competitors are then forced to react, and actual decisions are never good made under pressure. It doesn't work for all markets and all businesses, but sometimes being early is more important than being right, or having the perfect product, or having all features you deem necessary. You just want to push it out there and push pressure on the competition. Tightly to this, you have the concept of macro management versus micromanagement. And it's kind of, the terms from leadership, so how you're micromanaging your employees, or you're macromanaging or giving them some slack. So in terms of games or strategy games, the difference is when you're thinking about micromanagement, it's about clicking on a unit and telling it where exactly it needs to go on the map, and choosing, I don't know, what kind of spell the sorcerer should use. So very micromanaging smaller units and single units. And if you're thinking about macro management, you're trying to keep your economy up. You're trying to think about how this will play out in the next half hour. What kind of buildings should I be building now? What should I research now to set me up for success in the future? And the thing in gaming is, if you want to be successful, you need to do both. It's not a decision between micro versus macro. You just need to do both simultaneously. And that's what's setting the good players and the pro players apart from the beginners. So in terms of product development, you want to be pushing out features. You want to work on your product, but at the same time, you want to keep up with product discovery and think about the future. You need to think long-term and short-term at the exact same time. You want to be very aware of what's happening right now, but also think about, are we actually progressing in the right pace and in the right direction towards our vision? And one concept that I find very important here is in product development, the exploit versus explore ratio. So you might set for like the next quarter or the next half year, based on your current strategy and the circumstances of the market, you want to invest like 25% of your resources into exploring opportunities for the next half year, so running prototypes and A/B tests, fake door tests, prototyping, whatever. And the other 75% you want to actually exploit what you've learned in the past explore section and ship these things. But these are not not there's no right ratio for this. You might enter a phase in your product maturity where you actually want to switch things and have it like a 50-50 split, or even have a quarter where you do like 75% of exploration and only very little shipping, because you want to learn for the next thing, and you sense there's a switch in the market happening, a new trend arising. So this concept of explicitly thinking about the exploit versus explore ratio, I think is very handy in product development. Another thing that sets the pro players apart from the beginners is actions per minute. So if you ever watched a pro gamer playing, you think they would need like a new computer mouse after every game. They just beat it so hard and click like a million times on this, while the beginners is more like my father when using Excel, clicking a few times per minute once studying the screen. So I think some of them just do this to keep their fingers active, and it's about muscle memory and staying active and some physiology here. But it's actually about staying in the game, being very active, thinking about micromanage and macromanagement at the same time. You will just have a very high pace of actions you put in this game. And it's kind of what we learned from Agile development. You want to be very active. You don't want to ship things after 2 years of development. You want to push new things out, ideally on a daily basis, continuous deployment, if possible. So your high shipping frequency will result in just more insight into the market and a faster time to market and time to value for your users, if you're shipping the right thing, which is of course a completely separate story from just pushing things out. So this is I think a nice analogy to the Agile rhythm. Then once you've survived the first part of the game, so you survive perhaps the rush, you set up your first economy, then it's time to think about expansions. The expansion means setting up a second or third base just to get access to new resources or to more resources at the same time. And one thing you need to know in strategy games, most of the time, you don't have infinite resources. So you got these crystals or these, gas things here on the map, which can be depleted. So after a time, in your home base, your workers can't do anything more because they don't have the resources. You actually need to expand to survive. And of course, again, this is the same in product development. You don't have infinite resources, and just because a market works once for you, it doesn't mean it keeps working for you in the next 5 years. There are so many things that change, not only technology, legislation, behavior changes in users. There's so much to think about here. So you want to expand early into other markets, into other possible resources, and you want to do this before the competitors do so, because resources are finite. You compete around these markets, these resources. And one thing to mind here, I think it's one lesson a lot of companies learned from the past few years during COVID, is when you try to enter a new segment, a new market, a new part of the user journey, this does require a lot of focus and a lot of resources. You can't easily expand. It takes time and effort. And actually, you can only do this if your actual current product is running completely smoothly. If you're under pressure there, if you're consistently firefighting, you don't have the mental space and the resources to actually think about an expansion. So you need to change when everything is still going good and as well. You don't change just when you arrive in a crisis. Then it's basically too late. That's why I keep pushing my founders I'm coaching into thinking about these expansions very early on and reaching for something higher. At least thinking about this before it's putting pressure on them and they need to be reactive, which always leads to bad decisions. And I think we're already at kind of the last mechanic I want to showcase here. When you buy a game, you typically can choose between you just go the single player route and play the campaign as it's called, or you log in into the internet and play against real players in the multiplayer mode. So if you've ever done both of them, you will know when you walk through the campaign, it's very story related. Everything is set up at a difficulty level that's handleable for you. So you came out of the campaign and think, I got this game. I actually I'm a master of this game. Nobody can beat me. I got through this campaign without losing a single mission. And then you log into the internet, play a multiplayer game, and some 8-year-old girl from Korea just kicks your ass. It's so not using stereotypes, but it's just you're gonna suck really really bad in the open world, and you're confronted with completely different problems. So what I'm saying is, when you're actually it's all easy when your product is in an idea stage. Everything sounds so exciting and you got this great concept, and why shouldn't people love it? But shit gets real when you enter this market for real, when you launch, and then you hit with the reality. And it's just that 9 out of 10 ideas, 9 out of 10 startups just are a failure and will never succeed. And you need to be aware of this. So setting you up from the beginning to maximize your success and think about all these concepts, putting them together in a coherent strategy process. This is what will perhaps allow you to beat those odds. And I think it's not about just trying to come up with a better idea. We have so many good ideas. It's not about the lack of good ideas. It's about execution. So while I try to make this very playful around game mechanics, those are actual very, very serious business concepts you see in all major companies that actually succeed. So what makes a great product strategy? How can you put this together? So for me, a strategy, it needs to be like very, very, very easy to understand. If you ever read a strategy document that's like 25 pages, and by the end of it, you can't remember how it started, it feels like a data analyst report or something, then it's not a strategy. It failed in doing its job. You should read this kind of like a story, and afterwards, it's just so apparent how the next year will be playing out, how your roadmap should look like. There's no question left. Okay, while we analyzed this, we got into this conclusion, and this leads to this roadmap and this launch plan. And it's so thought through and laid out in an easy to understand way that your whole company can rally around this and understand this. And that's kind of the base thing you want to achieve with a strategy. And you want to base this on research, on analysis, on digging deep into user data, into market data. One common mistake I see in strategies is that you don't make any hard choices. People try to mistake a strategy for a vision or a mission statement. So telling others, or sometimes investors, we are trying to be the best company in this market and having superb customer support. So this sounds nice, but it isn't a strategy. This will apply to like 1,000 different companies as well. Everybody's trying to do that. Making hard choices is about choosing a part in your competitive market space where you want to excel and where you want to be better at the competition, but deliberate choose some of the parts, some ways to compete where you actually think, I don't want to compete here. I want to be less than worse than my competition here. It's fine for me. You need to tie this analysis to a coherent set of actions. Everything needs to be completely tied together. And while I believe, for example, that Scrum is working better if you're more thinking about the Agile manifesto and the mindset behind this than actual the Scrum process itself. And the same for the product strategy. You want to accompany this with some first principles, some guidelines you can actually pull out of the head every time there's a product decision to be made. If you're starting new discussions, new meetings, every time you have a product decision to make, and you're not relying just on your product strategy, then your product strategy is not worth a dime. You need to be able to make decisions based on this, or you could just skip writing one. And one thing, and this is kind of the last thing I want to say here before pushing my time limit, the thing that I see a lot of the time is that CEOs or management tell people we need someone more strategic, without knowing what that means. But what most of the time they actually mean, we need someone who can come up with the next big thing, right? And people always attribute this to creativity and this one creative genius like Steve Jobs. You got this one guy who's coming up with the great product idea in the morning in the shower, and this will change the life of millions of people in the next 2 years. So this is simply not how it works. There are these lucky shots, but it simply doesn't work. What you actually want to have is you want to hire someone who makes most of the time good decisions, but also some bad ones, but he's capable of producing good strategies and good products over and over and over again. Not because he's this creative genius and showers a lot, but because he has a very solid framework, a very solid process to just push out these strategies and keep people aligned with this. And that's actually what I'm trying to bring over with my book, From Vision to Version. It's very recipe-like, how you can come up with the product vision and how you write one, how you write a good strategy that's worth for the next 6 to 12 months, how you connect this to a roadmap, how you write roadmap items and put things together. So if you're looking for some kind of base process, you can just plug and play and then learn from that and adapt it to your specific environment. I would just be thrilled if you give this a shot, and especially for you guys, if you visit productrockstars.com, it's my website. You can submit to the newsletter and get the free chapter on crafting the product strategy. It's just one part of the book, or you can enter the code Product People Rock and get a 20% discount on the full 260 pages. And with that, I'm done with my last marketing plug, I'm sure, and I'll be heading over to the Ask Me Anything session. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much for such a fun and awesome presentation today, Daniel. We're going to ask you to stop sharing so we can share our slides right now. And yes, so I would like to open up the Q&A section of our event today. But before I do so, I would also like to give some time for people, our viewers, to ask some questions in the comment section. And if you're joining us on Zoom, remember that you can also raise your hand and speak up. But to give everybody the chance to think about what they'd like to ask, I will use this time to give a quick overview of some of our use cases at Product People. So we work best in the following scenarios. If you need somebody to cover as an interim product manager or product leader, if they go on a parental leave, for example, or when looking to hire someone for a permanent position, since this process usually might take up 3 to 9 months. We also offer product coaching and consultancy if you want to coach your product management team and improve processes. And last but not least, as a product discovery lead, we help you discover new initiatives and products, do user research and establish business models, or helping your team run a low or no code pilot or MVP. And we've done this already for our clients, some of which you can see on the slide, such as Zalando, Tier, Omio, OneFootball, just to name a few. We receive a lot of positive feedback from our clients, some of which you can see here. And if any of this has caught your attention and you're interested in becoming a part of our wonderful team, we work remotely from a lot of different countries and cities, and you're most welcome to apply to any of our open positions. So just type in the link you see on the screen, and we are currently looking for product managers of all levels. So finally, coming back to our Q&A, Let me see if we got any questions. We'll wait for some questions. I do have a question myself because I am actually an avid gamer. I would like to know, what was that moment when you realized the relationship between gaming and product strategy? What was that kind of like maybe aha moment for you?
Well, when I was younger, at the time that I was, playing this game Lemmings, it wasn't that I was thinking about product strategy. So it came much later for sure. Um, I think when I actually started to, when I was responsible for the legacy product that needs to think about where it's headed, because it was on a slow decline, and we needed to make a complete turnaround both in process and in product strategy. And there was a lot of mindset questions in the team and how to actually go with this. And the team, as probably most developers, were very gaming related. So I used this analogy to actually try to convince them on following me in this path, and trying to get a deeper understanding of why we're doing things in the future.
All right. That was, yeah, I haven't like played Lemmings in my time, I guess, because I played yeah, more recent games, but do you feel like with more recent games there are also some maybe new tactics, new strategies that could be applied to product management?
I feel so. Since I got kids, I didn't find the time to game a lot, but so I'm pretty sure that games like Fortnite, like League of Legends, and things that I at least I, as an old man, feel like are current games. They have a lot of opportunities to think about strategies and how to approach this. And people get so creative. When you scout the web for those games, there are so many wikis and Reddit groups for people sharing their tactics and their strategies and educating people. And it's basically I think it's much more evolved the community than the product management community. And basically, they're talking about the same things. They just never thought about applying this to something for a real world case.
We got a question from LinkedIn from Zen Or. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And he's asking, what is your recommended approach to product pricing?
Well, that's kind of a large topic. Um, so the product pricing, I think it's a lot about you don't think about pricing, you think about your business model and how everything ties together. Um, right now I'm talking with a lot of SaaS companies around SaaS pricing, which is quite a bit different from enterprise pricing and scaling. So I think it's, since it's the most common form for most products right now, I will be talking more about the SaaS model pricing. And um, you want to think about what part of the journey, of the buyer's journey and the progression in the lifetime of the user is your product being part of. And ideally, it feels like when your user's business grows, then it grows through your help, and it justifies for switching over into a higher plan. So, for example, if you got some, I don't know, podcasting service, and your lowest plan is like for I don't know, 100 listeners per month, then if some podcast outgrow this and goes into like 10,000 listeners per month, then it's fine for this podcast to pay more for it, because they make more money. So your improvement in your pricing tiers should reflect the journey and the lifetime of and the growth of the actual user and their company and their business. And I think people start too early with a free plan. No, free plan is not part of your business strategy or your business model. A free plan is simply a marketing tool to widen the funnel on the top. So don't place too much emphasis on do we have a free plan. It's more about how can we what progression do we see between the free trial, the first plan, the pro plan, the enterprise plan, and how does this match with the actual progress the company, the customer is doing? I hope that helps.
You.
It's very, very vague, but
I hope that answered your questions. Then we have another one from LinkedIn. This one comes from Sophia, and she wants to know, how would you transform an organization from project driven to be product driven?
Well, it's that's a very, very cultural change, and so basically it needs to come from the top. That's one of the biggest learnings I had from that. You need to have complete support from the top, and you need to have a reason. It's not about just because someone on the internet or some consultant said the future is in product-led organizations. You need to be aware of what's your expectation behind this, and what's not working with your current project-related approach. What are you expecting from this, and why are you doing this? And if you can get the same kind of understanding there, and if there's an actual reason and the reason is compelling, then you have the buy-in from the top, and then it's about more classic change management methods to push this into the organization. Most of the time, I recommend if you're larger, you want to run some kind of pilot in one of your units or one of your products, and if you're smaller, your product, you just want to grow slowly into this, and just from time to time and from sprint iteration to iteration, you try to incorporate more of these product led best practices to showcase this is making an impact. But it all starts by convincing people at the top that this is worthwhile, and make good and reasonable expectations for this.
Thank you for that answer. I hope that helps you, Sophia. We have another one from LinkedIn. This one comes from Ati, and he is asking, how do you prioritize the product roadmap?
Well, that's a nice question, and I've just recently written a blog post in our internal blog on this for the SaaS startups I'm coaching, so it's very fresh on my mind. There are a few frameworks here to help you out. I think a few things that you want to do is, you don't want to prioritize features, but you want to prioritize problems. That's so much easier to align people around this. So you're not telling we want to redesign our sign up screen, but you want to put on the roadmap, we improve conversion rate in the sign up process by 10%. So that's something everybody can commit to, but you leave the solution to the team to find a creative solution to actually solve this. That's one of the basics. And then I'm a strong believer around 3 concepts to help me decide what to put on the roadmap. The first thing is, does it have strategic fit? So one way to look at this is, if you have a North Star metric, which I highly recommend, how would you expect this new change, or this feature, this problem, to actually affect your North Star metric? Does it have positive impact, or negative, or no impact at all? Does it impact the right part of the user journey? Are you currently more into user engagement or user acquisition? So does it have a strategic fit? The next thing is about the viability, the business viability. So just make a simple back of the napkin calculation. We always think this sounds great. We got 10 customers asking for this, and other competitors are doing this as well. So do the math. Do you think how many percentage of churn will this reduce in the next couple months, in the next 2 years? How many more people will sign up? How does it affect the long-time value of the customers? Will it drive more people into a higher plan? If so, how many people? And if you come up with now this will be worth like $500,000, and it's an investment of $50,000 to actually develop this, then I would say, okay, if it got strategic fit and it seems viable, that's a good start. But most of the time, for things that people request, people won't pay for it. So you have the highest thing on your roadmap right now, and there's a good chance that it will make exactly $0 for you. You need to be aware of that. There might be ways to or scenarios where you want to have this despite being zero or being a negative investment, but you need to be aware of that fact. And then you just you batted down all the possible things, and only those with strategic fit and with a viable business opportunity stay. And then I will just use something like the RISE score. So think about how many users will this affect at the reach. For one of those users, how big will the impact be? How confident am I for this? And for confident, I think it was Tim Herbeck who has a very nice scale for this. Like if it's just a gut feeling, you multiply this by 0.01, so very, very low confidence. And only once you reach, you have actual data, you have a running prototype, you have validated things in the market, then you go beyond the factor of 1. So that's kind of the make or break factor here. And one of the easiest way to push things higher on the roadmap is just to run experiments and get more data on this and justify the development. And then the end of the RISE framework is the E, the effort. So actually, how much effort do I need to push this out? Think not only about development, but also about the rollout, about training people, about publishing new material and doing webinars and so on. And putting these 3 concepts together, I think you have a very solid process in selecting what to put on the roadmap and how high you want to have it on the roadmap.
Thank you for such a nice and extensive answer. We have a question from Zoom from Gaurav. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Would you like to maybe unmute yourself and ask the question, or do you want me to ask it?
Yeah, I can do that. So first of all, thank you for your time to present this. It's very, very interesting. I'm involved in similar strategic work at my organization, and there's always this conflict that you end up having at when you have a product which is at a fairly mature stage, where if you have many customers out there, you have to be able to conflict you're really conflicted between the demands of those existing customers in terms of supporting them, maintaining them, and also the innovation that you would have to do in order to be able to attract new customers. How do you go about actually introducing this as, do you introduce strategic themes or pillars? How would you, manage the balance between both of these?
Okay, so if I study correctly, the question is, how would you balance in your strategy accommodating the existing customers and improving things for existing customers, and also grow the product to be entering new markets and be useful for other user segments as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. The balance between maintenance and innovation, really.
Yeah, I see. I think it's a bit depending on your moment in the lifetime of your product and in which phase you're in. So if you're in an early stage or trying to get product market fit, then you're not worried about innovation. You're just trying to fix this one problem for one very specific customer group, and really excel for this and make this famous 10x difference for this kind of customer. But once you've outgrown your early adopters and your early market with your product market fit, and you want to push things further, I think there is no right or wrong way to this, and I think you actually answered your question yourself. It's about finding a balance. So like this exploit-explore ratio, really, and it's not just a concept, it's actually writing down in your strategy, for the next 6 months, we commit to having 25% of our resources put into exploration mode. And I think kind of the same applies when you're thinking about this innovation versus the existing customers. You can have a very explicit ratio between both, and this will help you define what to put on the roadmap to make sure it's fitting this ratio. One thing, I don't think those are completely decoupled things. So most of the time, you don't need innovation to, something completely different. You don't need to push your product in a completely different direction to get into a new market. I would look at the user journey for your target group, and just widen your view on this user journey, and try to, if you're not looking, it's not the path through your software, the user journey, it's what actually happens in their life, in their business. And probably your product is only taking part in like 30% of this user journey. And I think you're automatically will reach more people and a bigger audience if you go from 30 to 40 to 50% of this user journey. You just widen your grip on this journey, and by that be useful for more people. But it's still also useful for your existing customers. So it's not always a trade-off decision between these two, I would say.
Interesting. Thank you. Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Daniel. And thank you for the question, Gaurav. So yes, we just have time for one more question. And I will ask you this question. What are the maybe 3 most common pitfalls that you've encountered while crafting your product strategy? Are there any that come to mind?
Yeah, well, I feel I kind of listed those in the presentation. So I think the first thing is that people don't have a strategy. They mistake their vision for a strategy, or they mistake their roadmap for a strategy. That's not the same. Strategy is a separate thing connecting both. And so that's number one of the most common pitfalls. The second one is that it's not useful. So we've probably all been there. We've sat for a whole week in a conference room with 10 people with the leadership board and came up with a perfect strategy. And then something like, we want to concentrate on small businesses. You got this written up and think, yeah, we're not really good for large corporates. We want to concentrate on the small businesses. This is our strategy. The week after, I don't know, Mercedes calls. They want to be your client. And if you got a good strategy, and if it's worth the effort you put in this, you would just say, well, Mercedes, that's nice of you. You can use our standard product, but we won't do any customization, or we won't bend backwards just to accommodate you. It's not worth it. You're not our target market. But in reality, what happens is, yeah, well, we got this strategy, but it's Mercedes, and it's such a great company, and we want to have this on our website. Well, I think we should do some custom development for them, and they're asking for a few things. And yeah, we're hosting this on AWS, but they want to have it on the Google Cloud. I think we can get our developers to do that. And so your strategy isn't worth the paper it's printed on. That's probably the second pitfall you can have there. It's simply not useful. And you don't want to have the third one probably is you don't want to have your strategy too positive. It shouldn't feel like marketing material, like a vision, very motivating. The strategy is not meant to be motivating. It's meant to be clear and guiding. If you can't make good decisions, and also in hard times, and also the very, very hard to make decisions based on your strategy, it's not worth it. If you don't fall into these 3 pitfalls, I would say your strategy is better than 95% of strategies I've seen.
Thank you very much for that. And with that, we are ending our event today. So to everybody who has joined us today, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the questions. They were great. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn. We also have a Telegram group. And of course, join us for future live stream events like this one. So thank you, everybody.